Hey, nice to be back again. We've heard a lot of modern technology, new technologies today, 5G, even 6G, about artificial intelligence and machine learning, but we haven't heard much about the technology which enables all those progresses. And now I'm very happy to have somebody here who talks about cloud computing, especially company very strong about cloud computing, Amazon Web Services. We have Rui Frazao. He is Global Telco Solution Architect Leader, and he will talk about from Telco to TechCo. Rui Frazao, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Bernd. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be back in Dresden and to be talking about how we're helping the telcos accelerate their journey from a telco to a TechCo company. I've been getting a lot of questions about what does AWS do for the telcos. Now, we do, and we continue to do a lot. So I'll try to browse as quickly as possible through most of the important topics, and I'll be available to discuss further details afterwards. The one thing at Amazon and AWS that we do is we always start by understanding what are our customers' problems. And we've been asking the telcos what's top of mind. And this is the 5 topics that we got. Might not be a surprise, the first 2, monetizing 5G is key. Currently, 34 out of 50 telco operators in Europe have a running 5G network. So the pressure is there to actually start using it and monetizing it. Achieving cost efficiencies, recurring topic. There's a report from a company called Omdia where they say, or they believe, that telcos can save up to 10% of their costs by running their infrastructure on public cloud. Now, interesting enough is the sustainability is moving to top of the agenda. And this is also an important topic for us. At the moment, we're running already in our global infrastructure, we're running 85% on renewable energy. We're planning to achieve 100% in the next few years. But we're also investing in development of technologies like CPU, where we're bringing more efficient CPU architectures that our customers can use. And I'll talk a bit more about that. Transforming from telco to TechCo. This is also a big topic that we see. So telcos want to have the ability to develop faster and bring faster to market their service and solutions. They also want to provide a better service to their customers. And they believe that they need to have the ability in-house to do that. And then lastly, using or leveraging AI and machine learning to predict and personalize the interaction with their customers. We all have heard generative AI probably 10 times a day over the last few weeks. That's one of the tools, particularly in the natural language processing, that can help the telcos. But there are many other tools that can be used. I mean, AI machine learning tools that can be used to be based on the data that the telcos have to improve their services and the service they provide to their customers. So what are we trying to do? So we're looking at bringing the capabilities of the cloud that some of you might know and that might associate with IT services. And that's actually the area that most of the telcos have started. And we're looking at bringing those capabilities to the network infrastructure. And this is across the border. Now, many people ask, is this an easy task to do? And the answer is, no, it is not, because we're bringing 2 different worlds together. And this is actually where my team of solutions architects come into play. And every telco is coming from a different background. They're in different stages of their infrastructure and customer and business. And that means that we do need to understand those differences and work in the best way. I'll give some examples later in terms of specific projects that we're doing. But the reality is that we do need to work together. That's also a question I get. Should cloud providers and telcos work together? Definitely yes, because there are elements that we're bringing to the table and knowledge that we're bringing, but we also need to understand some of the other requirements that come from the telco side. Now, there's not just the telcos as the customers that we have, but also the partners. So you all work with your network vendors, your network partners, and they also need to evolve and make sure they make the best out of the cloud capabilities. So our daily work is to work with the various telcos and the various departments and work with the various network vendors and make sure that we create a path so that you can leverage the best way the cloud infrastructure. If you look at where we started as a business unit, so I'm part of a telco business unit. We created industry business units so that we can focus on the specifics of every industry, and the telco started in 2019. So we started by, on one side, to work with the telcos in terms of how can we create new go-to-market initiatives. Back then, multi-access edge computing was a big topic, MEC, and we decided that this was a good place to start with. We created a product called Wavelength, and this is an extension of the AWS cloud to the edge of the telcos. Today, we already have 29 wavelength zones across the world. In Europe, we start with Vodafone, in the UK and Germany. We announced recently the wavelength with British Telecom, and we are working with Telefonica also to open in Spain. So this is one of the areas that we started in 2019 and that we continue to expand. In terms of the telecom ecosystem and migration of applications to the cloud, no surprise that we start with the BSS, OSS, which are, and I know that some of the network people don't like that we say that, but which are IT-like applications and are easier to migrate to the cloud. And then at the bottom, we are expanding our infrastructure so that we can cover the areas that our customers require to have infrastructure. As we fast forward to 2023, you'll see a lot more capabilities that we've been developing for the telco market and telco industry. In yellow, so we have some of the announcements this year at Mobile World Congress, and I'm going to be talking about in more detail. But bottom line is we continue to build in partnership with our telco partners solutions that where they can monetize their networks, and especially 5G networks, working with the ecosystem and with the telco partners to bring those applications to the cloud and leverage the cloud capabilities. And then third, expand our infrastructure and tools that allow the telcos to actually start migrating also their network infrastructure to the cloud. So let me get into a bit more detail and coming to transforming telcos. We're looking at 4 pillars. Starting from the top left, we have the cloudification of the network. So this is about bringing that infrastructure that most of the telcos started virtualizing a few years ago and have their own data centers and see what we can move to the public cloud and use the efficiencies that we can provide there. On the second one, Operations Simplified, this is bringing automation tools into the mix and help automate some of those functions. A few years ago, there was a big topic, which was zero-touch automation or self-driving networks. This is the area that we're coming, and we're bringing those extensive tools. For those of you that are not so familiar with cloud, cloud is not just about providing compute, storage, infrastructure in the cloud, but we have more than 200 features and services, including the ability to very easily drive automation or manage some of the other elements of your infrastructure. In terms of the customer experience, ability to manage your data in a more secure and flexible way, and then use machine learning and AI on top to drive more insights from your data. And then lastly, growth unlocked. This is enable you to use additional services on top of the cloud. Wavelength is one of those, and monetize. Big list of examples here. I'll touch a few examples. On the top left side, Dish is our biggest partnership that we have. A few years ago in the US, a greenfield operator got a license to build a 5G network. We started working with them, and we're building or expanding our infrastructure in the US for the network, for them to build a network, and that includes extension of our infrastructure from what we call regions into local zones across multiple places of the US to provide that low latency that network functions require. And we enable them to go from 0 to 20% coverage of 5G in just 14 months. Docomo, this is a real experiment. It was done as an experiment. Now we're looking at how we drive this forward. So with Entity Docomo, using NEC mobile core, we worked with them to compare running a mobile core on-prem in their infrastructure with x86 architecture, so Intel CPUs, and also running in parallel the same mobile core in our cloud using our Graviton 2, which is ARM-based, so a lot more power-efficient CPU solution, and compare what was the power gain. And the cloud solution on Graviton was 70% more power efficient. We have examples of Swisscom where we have cooperation, and we're working with Swisscom in terms of bringing their IT systems and their network systems. A big element of that, or there was a big requirement that some of the most critical applications need to reside in Switzerland. A few months ago, we opened a new region in Switzerland, and Swisscom, amongst others, but Swisscom is one of the key tenants of that infrastructure. One of the big first network projects is a mobile core with Ericsson running on AWS Cloud. We have Telefonica, that we have many projects, and we heard Malik today say, or at least demonstrate his commitment to move and leverage the cloud. We also have applications on the IT side as well as on the network. Again, we're looking at moving a mobile core to the AWS cloud. Deutsche Telekom and Telefonica, for instance, are examples of where we have initiatives to enable cloud skills, and we have joint programs to help accelerate those cloud skills in the various teams. And these are just a few examples I'm happy to talk about in more detail afterwards. One of the things, and going back to that picture I showed you where we're trying to leverage the capabilities of cloud into the network infrastructure, one of the things that is missing are the tools to translate the network world into the cloud world. And we launched one of those tools recently at Mobile World Congress. It's called the Telco Network Builder. And this takes the description of a network function in the, let's say, in the language of the network teams and infrastructure, and it translates that into cloud infrastructure and automatically deploys that cloud infrastructure so that the deployment and network functions can be done in an easier way and managed using the cloud tools. Now, the other thing that we've been looking at is the enterprise customers of the telcos, which are, in most cases, also our enterprise customers of cloud services. And we looked at what do they want or don't want. And what we realized is that enterprise services or enterprise companies don't want just connectivity. They want to run their business, and that means that they want to run applications in conjunction with connectivity. And one of the challenges that they have at this point in time is if they want to host their applications in the cloud, they go to a cloud provider, and then they need the connectivity or access connectivity from a telco, and then third, they need to find someone that helps them connect. They want cost flexibility. So they want to have the ability to choose how much they're going to pay and how much they're going to use or resource they're going to use. They want things to be delivered fast. They want fast time to value. And they don't want complexity. They want someone to abstract that complexity. Now, we realized over the last few years that for some reason, those enterprise customers are starting to rely more and more on private networks, private mobile networks, 4G and 5G. And we've been running many projects with those companies, and you have a few examples here. Majority of the projects are actually in the US, but we see some projects starting in Europe as we speak. So with that, we decided to look at what did we have to do and how do we provide that flexibility and that level of options to those customers. And we start with one, is what we call services from the cloud. This is exclusive to the US, because in the US, there is a spectrum band, CBRS, citizens band, that is open for anyone to use for 5G access. And what we realized is that we could deliver with partners a solution where we shipped the physical equipment to those customers, and then we can remotely enable that service. Then we have the services with the cloud. And we created what we call integrated private wireless, and we're doing this with the telcos. So we're helping the telcos build their private wireless solutions in a way that can easily integrate with the cloud. And we created a marketplace. And this means that the developers or the enterprise companies that are procuring cloud services don't need to go elsewhere to procure that private access. They can do it through us. And then obviously we work with our partners. And then customer private wireless is working with companies that specifically want to build something themselves and help them use the cloud and enable those services. With integrated private wireless, you can see at the bottom, these are the partners or the telcos that we launched with first. In Europe, we have Orange, Deutsche Telekom, and Telefonica as partners, and we're working with other partners to integrate their solutions. Now, these are a number of different examples. I'll just leave the picture. We don't have much time to go through them, but I'm happy to discuss. And this is where we come and work with the telcos, understand their enterprise customers' requirements, and then work and help them build that bundled solution, rather than just provide connectivity and stop there. Now, what we're doing in the consumer side, one example is with TELUS in Canada. They wanted to go beyond just providing consumer broadband services, connectivity, and provide a router that is deployed to the home of their customers. They wanted to extend the capabilities, and we've helped them create a solution that allows them to not only manage that system, but also add applications on top of it and build what they call a smart hub. And this is because consumers at home, they're connecting more and more devices for controlling home elements and a few other devices, and all of that requires a lot of configuration. And with this solution, it simplifies and creates a value add that the telcos can provide. And we're changing the developer experience by cooperating with the telco industry. GSMA has an initiative called Open Gateway to create network APIs that the users, the developers, can use to integrate with their applications. At Mobile World Congress, we did a number of demos. Telefonica is one of those examples. And API is our core business. So this is how we run our infrastructure. Again, a few examples of solutions that we're developing with our telcos, extending those capabilities and using those APIs. This is a slide also to show how we continue to enhance our partnership. So we work with partners, and since we started, there were a handful of telcos and network vendors. As we go, and as you can see in 2023, we continue to add those partners, and this is what we do in the telco business unit, is work with both the telcos and the network vendors and make sure that we can develop this ecosystem and accelerate adoption of cloud services. And gives 1 minute and something for questions.
Any questions? I've seen one question here.
Thank you. My question is about security. When you put the 5G core on your servers, the user data in the core is open to see. What is your company doing to provide security, special security for that servers, for the whole building and for the equipment, because it becomes all of a sudden an important part of critical infrastructure when the 5G core is there. No? I have been in buildings of telcos where the core network runs. You run to special levels of security checkup before you can even go inside, and there is a lot of things the regulators want to know from the telcos if this data is really secure.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and data sovereignty and even cloud sovereignty is a big topic. There's a number of different layers that we have, or tools, that are used when deploying critical mission or applications in the cloud that contain data or customer data. So the first thing is that all of the data, and this is also where we recommend, independent if it's a 5G core or any other application, is that all of the data to be encrypted. And we provide the tools for the telcos to encrypt their data. And this means encrypting the data at rest. So when you have the data in your databases or storage, can be encrypted, and encrypt the data in transit. We're also coming with what is called confidential computing, so the ability to encrypt the data in the processor when the processor is computing the data. So that also can be, let's say, encrypted at that level. We provide tools even for, and we have a partnership with Deutsche Telekom, or T-Systems in this case, where we enable third parties to host those encryption keys. So you don't need to have those encryption keys with AWS. You can have an external third party or an external tool that keeps those encryption keys and interact with the cloud. And then lately, one of the things, and this is unique to AWS, we created something that we call Nitro, which is actually developed in Dresden and Berlin. So we have an R&D here. And this is a hardware that we put in every of our servers that secures that and encrypts the access, so the management access to the servers, and physically separate the servers from the management system that our teams use. And that means that unlike a normal hypervisor, where the hypervisor runs on the server, and there's an element of the hypervisor which is used for you to remotely manage that virtual machine, we do that on hardware. So none of our engineers can access any of the data that is running on those CPUs. And that's an extra layer of not only security, but also enables our users to use the full capacity of a server in a secured way. So these are just examples of tools, and we work very closely, again, with telcos and network vendors to ensure that they're using these tools in the appropriate way.
Thank you very much. And I have some questions myself, but as I think you are on the boat later on this day.
Yeah, I'm going to be today and tomorrow.
As we are in a little bit of rush, I think we should talk later. Thank you very much, Rui.
Thank you.